Hi everyone, it's Natalie here. Happy full moon. So it's just a couple days before the winter solstice and there's a huge, beautiful full moon tonight. You can still hear the traffic. I'm here with Henry. I doubt he'll come out on camera. I don't know, my headlamp switched to light yet. Here we go. I usually keep it on red, but there's my baby. And yeah, we're just out having our evening walk, which we do at this time of night. It's really beautiful in the park at this time of night. Again, it is the city, but it's still lovely, really lovely. So I thought maybe tonight I would offer a nice spooky story, or maybe a few, depending on how long my battery lasts. You know, it's that time of year. For me, spooky is pretty much all year, if you're me, but there's something about all of this dark at this time of year that really, really lends itself to things being kind of dark and creepy and so forth. I know we're hopefully celebrating light in some respect at this time of year, but I also find it really helpful to take comfort in the dark, to be honest, especially given that it's kind of a hard time right now. You know, there's I mean, I hate to say it, but the threat of Omicron has left me feeling, even though I'm vaccinated, like I probably should just prepare at some point to get it, you know, to catch it and be sick. And so, I don't know. It's replicating so quickly, it's really hard to call. It's a tough call. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. That is not what I'm here to talk about. Instead, I thought I would share some of my creepy stories and spooky stories of the year and start there. It's been video day for Nat today, so I put together a lot of content and I'm just kind of in that place. So I'll just keep going, shall I? So, in and amongst the myriad of creepy experiences that have taken place this year, one of the coolest that I was just reflecting on earlier this evening happened at the office one day. As you know, most of you by now, I started working for a friend of mine who is a chiropractor. She's also my chiropractor. We are not anti-vax chiropractors, obviously, I think. Although we see plenty of people from pretty much every side of the spectrum where that's concerned. And in some respects, that's, you know, in terms of impartiality, that's helpful. Again, not what I'm here to talk about, but it's so present that it's hard not to have it filter in a little here or there. At any rate, we had a patient. I guess why it's relevant. We had this patient who had just gotten over the Delta variant, and she had it. Her whole family had it. They had intended to get vaccinated, but then hadn't gotten vaccinated, and it was really scary. You don't realize how much you care about somebody until they're really sick and you're afraid you're going to lose them, right? Even if they're just people that you don't maybe necessarily have a huge investment in your life, but they're part of it. So at any rate, she thankfully recovered and was back at work. I mean, she'd had to be hospitalized. She wrote letters to her kids thinking that she wasn't going to make it. You know, this was how bad it was. So of course we did a lot of praying and remote energy work and things for her, and she made it through. Well, a week or two after she was back at work, after getting the Delta virus, she she came back to us. Right? She initially seemed pretty good. You know, she had a really hard time, but then she bounced back quickly. She came back to see us at the office one afternoon, after we'd gotten her sort of pulled back together and feeling human again. And she was really weird and really, really off, like not herself at all. And it was very upsetting and freaky, because it was like, I remember she came in and sat down and I greeted her, and within seconds of that happening, and I remember it was a Monday morning because we were like, oh, it's a Monday, the electricity at our desk went out. So I'm sitting at the front desk and suddenly the electricity's all gone. And I really just thought it was, at the time, I really thought, okay, well, that's really, annoying. I wonder if we've got like one of the, something in the breaker box flipped, or, I mean, I was ready to go check almost anything. The internet was down, but it wasn't all of the lights in the entire place. It was just the ones at my desk. Now, I mean, for all I talk about being mediumistic or whatever, I'll be the first to tell you if I don't have to tune into it, I won't. Because it's too much. It's just, I mean, it's hard enough to just live and be in a body and try to make earn a living and keep it together, without having that kind of intrude on your, I don't know what, your ability to kind of just do your thing and move forward. It's not easy. So I really just was looking for, like, how do I get everything pulled back together and functioning again? I also wondered, because we just had the fire marshal or whatever come and check out our gaff, and look at where we plug in all of our stuff, and he told us we had to replug everything in and take it out of this tower and put it on this, and we had all kinds of, as you might imagine, like extension cords and all sorts. Well, that's what I immediately started doing, was just digging around under the desk. At any rate, the doctor came out and she took this patient in and disappeared into the office. And a few minutes later, as usual, she opened the door and she looked kind of grave and stern, is the only way I can describe it, which is not like her at all. Unless there's something wrong or she's in a really bad mood. And by that point, I was pissed off because I'd had it with the electricity. How am I going to run payments? How am I going to, keep things flowing all day with schedules and scheduling and so forth, and be in and out of the treatment room all day? But we tag team inside the treatment room, so I'm constantly in and out. And I was hoping she would just say, oh, it's okay, I got this, we don't need you in here. So she kind of came out and she was looking at me and she was like, everything okay? And I said, no, everything's not okay. Like, everything just kind of broke down and I'm worried about it, because I don't know how we're going to cope with this. She just kind of nodded. She goes, well, I need you in there. And I said, okay, I think you might need me out here a little bit more because I don't know how we're going to function with a full schedule today and yada yada. And she just kind of looked and she said, yeah, I really think you need to put that down and come in here, please. And I've never heard her take that tone, ever. So suffice it to say, of course, I just kind of dropped what I was doing. Am I about to turn on? Oh, okay, I know where I am now. Getting so engrossed in telling my little story here. I forgot where we were. So I said to her, okay, let me kind of get up off the floor here and pull myself together and, wash my hands and everything before I go in. So I did all of that stuff and opened the door and found the patient sitting in a chair, not on the table, which is not what she was there for. She was supposed to just be there for an adjustment. And the doc was sitting in the other chair. So I kind of looked at them both and I said, okay, so, what can I do? What can I do for you? And this patient had her eyes closed. She still wasn't able to look at me. And I have to say, it was cold in the room. That said, I think we were still using air conditioning at that time, but, excuse me, but not, we never had any problems with the air conditioning. It wasn't like it would suddenly get really hot in the room or whatever, and we had to turn it up, or that it would, suddenly go rogue and get really cold. And keep in mind, we'd just been having electrical issues, which would affect the HVAC system probably. So it was kind of chilly in there. And I said, well, do you know where this is going, right? So I said, well, so what's going on? And she said, we have someone extra with us here today. What do you know about dealing with spirit attachments? Do you have anything that, addresses that in your repertoire? And that one caught me off guard. Not what you're expecting at like 9:05 on a Monday morning, right? So I just kind of froze and I was like, well, yeah. I know a few things, but most of them would require, going into ritual. But I mean, we can try some stuff if you want. I know when this was now. It was in October because we had already been through our Healing Touch class. She said, can you just check the Healing Touch manual and see if there's anything in there? Well, I could tell you right now, I knew there was not anything in there, but I double checked it. So I paused for a minute and just observed them, right? Because, I had the book, but I was kind of thinking, okay, this does not look like our patient usually looks. Everything about her was just weird. It was different. And it turned out that they had been doing neuroemotive technique on the spirit through the patient. So the patient knew that something was really, really off and really wrong, and didn't know quite what to do about it. Oops, kind of crashed into some tree branches there. Didn't really crash, just kind of brushed. Anyway, the patient is a real estate agent. I don't think I mentioned that. She knew that it was probably one of two houses that she'd been to, but it was really hard for her to get the entire story out because she kept getting interrupted. Now, the interruptions didn't take the form of, speaking as the spirit or anything. She would sort of freeze and lock up really tight and have trouble breathing for a second or two and just look really, really intense and uncomfortable. And then just kind of try to shake it off. And when she'd catch her breath, she'd carry on. And usually it seemed like at those moments she was being told things, or she was being sort of kind of physically limited or pushed around a little bit by the spirit. So by that time, the doc had been talking to this spirit for a few minutes. And it turns out that it was a young man. He didn't say how he had died. He just was there. He was in one of the houses that this patient had walked into for, a viewing for a client that she had, a real estate client. And he seemed to think of her, and she is, of course, she has 4 kids, as a mother figure, and one who might be able to help him. Now, that's not an untrue thing, right? Because, she's clearly got some mediumistic abilities. This was apparently not the first time something mediumistic had happened to her, but it was the first time that she'd encountered something quite this intense. I mean, she hadn't been able to sleep. Her body was in pain. She was feeling a lot of the physical and emotional crisis and pain that this young man had felt prior to his death, which was pretty violent. He didn't say how he died, but as I sat watching and observing and so forth, what I got from it was he had hanged himself. Again, I sometimes don't know how that happens. Again, I guess it's claircognizance. It just is like, oh, this is an obvious fact. Then, why doesn't everybody know this fact that I seem to know right now, kind of thing. I felt like his name started with a P. It was like Peter or Philip or something very traditional. But again, or Paul, maybe it was Paul, but he again had not said what his name was. I think I figured out that it was Paul. I don't know, it's weird. I should have written something down, actually. I really should have written something down. I think that's part of why I'm just talking it through right now, is just to process it. We process things at the end of the year. So what happened was, as we started to try and get him to leave, I mean, he was feeling better, as he was kind of partly somehow experiencing, physical, or aspects, I should say, of physical reality through our patient. So doing the neuroemotive technique work on him, where you're essentially using a combination of, you're using the person's body. The person's body, our bodies store, they store information, they store memories, sensory memories, and feelings, and and emotion when we don't release it, right? We can get trapped in our physical tissues, and we often experience it as pain. So by literally, locating that pain in the body, and then asking the pain, through muscle testing, various questions to get to the root of what's causing it. Quite often it then correlates to one of the energy meridians in the body, right? Say the spleen or the liver meridian, the triple warmer, etc. Excuse me. So through doing that and doing that work and figuring out where she was hurting in her body, they were able to kind of trace and track the pain, and the doc could ask this young man questions, and he would answer our patient. I have to keep remembering to call her our patient, because I hope I didn't just say the doctor's name. I don't think she'd be that mad about it. Ooh, there's a Johnny on the spot, everybody. Johnny on the spot. There we go. But it was... Well, it was interesting because, she would ask the question, we'd get to the root of where the pain was. The young man would answer on he would answer like once we asked, and the patient would then say what the person said, if that makes sense, or what the young man said. So this went on for a while, and then it hit an impasse. There wasn't much more that could be done. The physical pain for the patient had more or less cleared up. So we were essentially then just dealing with the emotional pain of this young man. So I managed to kind of shake him out of his hold on her by calling his name. So I called his name and said, Paul, and the patient, I remember, just, whipped her head around and looked at me and said, yes, that's his name. How did you know? And I said, I really don't know. I really have no idea. It just sort of popped into my head, and I thought I would just give it a go. So I did. At any rate, we managed to talk the patient into a state of calm and relaxation so that she could take over and push the patient, or push this guy out on her own. And then once that was underway, I began to talk him through I could see him more clearly at that point, and I could kind of mentally help the guy cross over, which is really all he wanted to do. He just was lost. He didn't know how he got there or how he got stuck there, or why. And, you know, he identified our patient as a compassionate, gentle soul, which of course she is, and wanted help. That is called the Playground Pavilion. I think we'll approach it just because why not? There's nobody there. And it's so beautiful. Oh, there's the battery. It's good because I'm getting close to the end of the story here. Boop, there we go. At any rate, the patient was able to release him and send him away. And we had enough information about his death. It was not that long ago. It was maybe within the last 15 years. And the house, I said it was one of the houses that had been abandoned for a long time. That was never, you know, it was never, what's the word I want? It took a long time before anybody occupied it again. And I don't know for sure whether this guy chose to go. I think he did, actually, now that I'm saying it. I feel that he did. He chose to go there because he could quietly, you know, end his life and so forth. But it had left him trapped there, and then they did a rehab on the building to resell it, and, you know, you kind of know the rest. Yeah, at any rate, we saw her, I think, 3 or 4 more times that same day, just to keep working on her and helping her process through all of those things. So that didn't happen in just one session. That was in like 2 or 3 different sessions or appointments throughout the day to get her to that point of safety. And it was intense, you know. We'd then kind of go back to seeing, you know, regular average patients, and then be sort of launched back into that side of things later on. You know, the doc has said a few times that it's never been that crazy with these kinds of things happening until I started working there. And I'm not sure if I should say you're welcome or I'm really sorry. But yeah, so there we go. There's a spooky story from this year for our full moon, right here, very, very close to the winter solstice. So yeah, it's been a fascinating time. If you guys enjoyed that, there's more where that came from. Always more where that came from. So let me know. I can tell you some more spooky stories out on walking, you know, we're walking the dog. In the meantime, tons and tons of love to everyone, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye.